Chapter 6. I met Snooky in a small, loud West Hollywood disco bar late one Saturday night, following an unsatisfying one-time showcase gig at yet another Hollywood cafe with pretensions toward art. Now, I hate bars. Oh, I know, everybody says that. It's the second most used opening line in the world, right after the hands-down favorite, "Come here often?" comes that old standby, "Gee, don't you hate the bars?" But honestly, I hate bars. They're much too loud, for one thing. Intelligent conversation is an utter impossibility. The only thing more inane than bar talk is bar talk bellowed over the 48-hour disco remix of I Will Survive. Roomfuls of homosexuals simultaneously screaming, "Come here often," at full vocal capacity. They're also too damn dark. Being more than a bit myopic anyway, and with unreliable night vision, I find it distressing that most gay bars are lit so that I am barely able to discern large shapes, except for the illumination from the occasional stray shaft of mirror ball reflected light darting across a face here and there. It is practically impossible to see what anyone really looks like from further than 2 feet away. I have personally found that the sense of touch is, far and away, the most reliable in this situation. There is, however, the occasional gentleman who will find the Braille method of getting acquainted a bit forward. And when they finally do decide to shed some light on the subject, it is just before closing, by which point nearly everyone is ripped to the tits and looking none the better for wear and tear, and the room is suddenly bathed in a light just slightly less flattering than a naked 40-watt bulb dangling from the ceiling of the men's room at the Last Chance Texaco, leaving you with two choices: either grab the next thing you see that doesn't make your flesh crawl and take him home with you, or go home alone again and sleep single one more night. All things considered, I generally prefer to meet prospective romantic interests under less strained and better lit circumstances. Bus stops for the Santa Monica 1 line between the beach and UCLA are a pretty good bet. Also, the men's department of Bullock's Westwood, both employee and customers. And of course, any store, shop, restaurant, or street corner on Santa Monica Boulevard between Robertson and Fairfax. Things can get a little scuzzy east of Fairfax. Anyway, I was in this particular bar that particular Saturday night. The showcase had been just too depressing. I'd pulled a 12:30 a.m. time slot that stretched into 1:15, by which time there were 4 people left in the room, 3 of whom were drooling drunk and one of whom was still waiting to get on stage. The pianist maimed all of my charts beyond recognition. This guy couldn't have maintained a steady tempo if you beat 4/4 time upside his head with the ball peen hammer. I was just short of suicidal by the time I got out there, and the only possible cure for the case of blues I had contracted was a glass of cold white wine and a warm body. Almost any 98.6-degree form would do. I'd hardly walked into the place and returned my driver's license to my pocket before a hopeful-looking candidate sidled up to me and shouted, "Hey, buy you a drink?" over the disco din. "No thanks," I yelled. My new friend was good-looking enough in a well-scrubbed college boy sort of way, in close-cropped hair, argyle sweater, and jeans. But I had learned to be careful from whom I accepted the offer of a drink. I had encountered one too many men who thought the purchase of a beer tantamount to a marriage proposal, and who considered it odd that I was not necessarily to be had for the price of a Miller Lite. I ordered myself a white wine, and Joe Fratt scooted up beside me, smiling an all-American boy smile. He touched me on the shoulder and yelled something in my direction at the very moment the music reached an earth-moving crescendo. The guy's voice was no match for Sylvester's. "Dance with me in a disco heat." So I didn't get a word of it. I screamed, "What?" College boy leaned in close to my ear. "Do you like to get fucked with big hard dicks?" I had momentarily struck dumb. Did he just say what I thought he just said? I collected myself and said, "Who among us does not?" I looked furtively about for another place to stand. Joe College leaned in again. I voluntarily leaned away. "How'd you like to go to my place, get stoned, and fuck for about 6 hours?" I just looked at the guy for a second or two, my mouth just sort of hanging open. And then I laughed. Maybe it was nerves. Maybe it was the incongruity of overtly dirty talk coming from a guy who looked as wholesome as a baked potato. But I laughed, just to giggle at first, through which I managed to say, 6 hours? Sorry, five's my limit. I scooped up my wine and staggered away, doubled over with laughter. That was when I saw Snooky. Something about the small, dark-haired man leaning somewhat precariously against one corner of the bar attracted me immediately, despite the fact that Snooky was hardly my ideal physical type. As previously mentioned, I generally like them blonde and tan. I also prefer a certain amount of muscle. Snooky was, to be kind, rather scrawny with very dark hair, and was, without a shadow of a doubt, the palest man on earth. Picture an albino with dark curly hair and huge dark eyes. Ah, but such eyes. Big and liquid, with lashes out to there. Definitely the old limpid pool syndrome. You could fall into those eyes and never be seen or heard from again. It was the eyes that got me. So I ambled up to the pale, big-eyed stranger, sucked in a deep breath to expand my chest, crossed my arms to make my biceps bulge, and in my best butch voice said, "Hi." And after a minimum of innocuous bar talk, I said, "Come on," and he said, "Okay." It was almost closing time, no time to dilly-dally. Well, folks, then I got the guy home. FC, Fiasco City. First of all, I hated kissing him. Snooky's lips were very full and very, very soft, and he had this habit of licking them right before kissing, which made kissing him rather like smooching a bag of soggy marshmallows. Besides which, Snooky had tippled at least one snifter of Benedictine and brandy too many, foreshadowings of countless over-tippled evenings to come. Among the unappealing results were a case of halitosis that could have stopped a herd of stampeding wildebeest dead in their tracks, and an incurable case of leaping impotence that rendered Snooky's smallish pale pink penis frustratingly inactive, my own heroic attempts at oral resuscitation notwithstanding. For his part, Snooky made a half-hearted go at sucking me, but he really wasn't into it, a situation he illustrated most vividly with some off-putting coughing and retching noises. As if reading my mind, Snooky announced quite matter-of-factly that he never, but never got fucked, that indeed he found the very notion of l'amour grec entirely repulsive. To my abject disappointment, Snooky's behind, as round and creamy as 2 scoops of Haagen-Dazs honey vanilla ice cream, his best feature aside from his eyes. Those lovely buns guarded the gates to a sphincter that could not have been loosened by a small nuclear warhead. So there I was, at 2:47 on a Sunday morning, tired and horny and frustrated with this drunk, rigid, skinny white boy in my bed, apologizing repeatedly and chain-smoking Shermans. What's a boy to do? I made coffee. "So," I said, handing the pale young stranger a cup of chock full of nuts. "What do you do?" He clutched the steaming Snoopy mug full of coffee as if for dear life. "I'm a pianist," he replied. "An accompanist, really. I accompany pop singers. What do you do?" My ever-wavering faith in divine providence found renewed strength. "I'm a singer," I said. "A pop singer." By sunrise, I had gained both my accompanist and my very best life.